much. Are you okay?
You were talking into that other.
Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Chris? 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 Hello? Hello? Testing, 1, 2. Check, check, check. I'm sorry, folks. It's on. Can you hear me though? Okay, all right. Well, nobody was on now. I'm used to people telling me when we're doing okay or not. Thank you so much for being here. It is great to have all of you here. I'll tell you, there's no place like home, and there's no bed that sleeps like your own bed. So it's very nice to be back home in Panama City. We'll be here tonight. We leave early in the morning, going to the Tallahassee area and the east side of the district. We're home for our Easter break right now. And during this time, we've got about, I think, 6 town hall meetings scheduled. It's been our desire since the very day we were elected, well, even prior, we wanted to make sure that the communication between the government, which I now am a part of, and the people, that we have good communication. I know of nothing that can operate in success without communication. If you ask any field general over any army, the very first thing that he really wants to do when combating the enemy is to knock out their communication. Because he knows without communication, there's no way that they can mount a defense against their efforts to win. So one of the things that I want to make sure that we do, and our desire to really put some sanity back in to the federal government, we've got to create communication. And so our attempt to do that has been very simple. We're following through with our promise on town hall meetings, where I come face to face and I meet with the people. That should always be a requirement of your elected officials. Another thing we're doing, and some of you may have received phone calls, is we're doing our tele-town hall meetings. Each and every month we do a tele-town hall meeting where we call 150,000 residents in our district. And those residents get a phone call from me, and our desire is not to interrupt your evening. We try to do it after dinner and before bedtime. But we do not want to risk not having communication with you. And so we get that phone call, and a lot of people stay on the line, and for an hour, hour and a half, people get to ask me questions on the phone, and you also get to hear my answers. Many of you are shaking your heads, so you've received those phone calls. I have a lot of people that tell me, they don't want to ask a question, but they want to listen to the event. So they put the speakerphone on and they go about doing their thing. They eat dinner and they sit on the couch and they move around while listening to the dialogue over the hour and a half. That is done in an attempt to make sure that we communicate with you, not just on legislation that we're following, but on all of our efforts while representing you in Washington, D.C. We also spend 1 week of every month we spend in the district on what we call a district work week. This is our Easter break, so this is not included in that. But usually we have 1 week a month where we're home. And during every work week that we're home, I spend at least 5 of those 10 days at other parts of the district. So we spend a lot of time in hotels. In Tallahassee, usually 4 to 5 nights, and then we work the rural counties on the other side of the district, making sure that they know that they've got representation. There's a lot of issues that affect the rural counties that are important to me, especially in my position as a member of the Agriculture Committee. So much of ag and the Ag Committee oversees the government's responsibilities to the rural counties. So it's not just the farmers, but so much of the rural development issues that are important to our small counties, we oversee. The forestry, for example. And, I'm also on agriculture. I serve on the forestry subcommittee. So when I get over to Liberty County, Calhoun County, the production or the lack thereof of harvesting timber out of the Apalachicola National Forest, that's an important issue to them. So we talk about those issues that are important to them. Now, one of the things that you may or may not be aware of is that as a member of Congress, I serve on 3 committees. I just mentioned agriculture, and I felt agriculture is important because Florida is the 2nd leading state in the nation in specialty crops. We produce over 250 specialty crops, and in our district, we have an incredibly diverse crop that we produce. A lot of people don't realize we have over 70 dairy farmers in our district. So when you get over to Suwannee County, which is Live Oak, you get over to Lafayette County, which is Mayo, you get to Jefferson County, Monticello, I find there's a lot of dairy farmers over there that we work to help them on their issues. The second committee that I serve on is natural resources. Natural resources is probably the most active committee that I'm on, and we deal obviously with all the natural resources that we are blessed with in America. We also deal with energy. Energy has been a hot topic over the term of the 112th Congress. We deal with leases for drilling on the Outer Continental Shelf, the OCS. We also deal with something that's very near and dear to me, and I know some of you. We deal with the fisheries. My subcommittee on natural resources is the fisheries and oceans. And so we are very busy, and I can't say that enough. We are very busy to make sure that freedom is not stripped away from the American people in the waters. There is an attempt. It is a sinister attempt. It's an attempt by individuals who don't like to be really identified. Well, we're here to identify them. I want everybody to know who everybody is. And in that attempt, I would say we even have our good friend from the Democratic Party here, Matt. Welcome again. As you recall, in the last election, the Democratic Party tracked me. They started on May 5th of that year, and they continued to film me and film me and film me and film me and film me in an attempt to make sure that they could find those 3 or 4 words out of a 2-minute, 3-minute answer and cut it out, only to fraudulently repaint it so that it would look like I was saying something that you and most people with walking around since know that I wasn't saying. And so we're going to be very nice to Matt, because we'll spend a lot of time together between now and November. And but in my attempt to make sure that everybody knows who everybody is, that's what we're going to do. So on the fisheries, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that want to take away yours and my God-given right to fish. And it's not a right that I'm going to thank the government for, because the government didn't give me that right. The God who made us gave us that right. Now, the fisheries and NOAA and some of the things that we oversee as a member of the fisheries, they are responsible to help us track with good data and good science so we can know what the condition of those fisheries are. And that's my big problem, because they're not doing that. And so I will continue to shed light on their inability to do what government is supposed to do in service to the people. It is not the people in service to the government. And so that's the second committee. The third committee that I'm on is transportation and infrastructure. It is a responsibility of government to make sure that we have our federal highways, our postal routes. And so therefore we are working very, very diligently. We're debating right now, and I know many of you have read about our transportation bill that we're working on right now. I am of the belief that it is not government's responsibility to create jobs. It is government's responsibility to create an environment where private investors create jobs, because they can do that better, in my opinion, than anyone else. But it is government's responsibility to make sure that the environment, the regulatory environment, the taxing environment, that we create an environment where the people from around the world want to invest and bank on America. And then if we can unleash the creativity and the unbelievable ability of the American worker, we will create goods and products that the world wants. Why? Because we have created an environment that is conducive for growth. And so therefore on transportation bill, right now, we're debating. The Senate, they think it's okay for us to have a 2-year bill. Well, we started out months ago by trying to produce a 5-year bill. Because you know and I know that if you're in business today, You'd much rather have 5 years of certainty than 2 years of certainty. And when you buy a piece of equipment, and if you're a paver, and you buy pieces of equipment, you rarely pay for those pieces of equipment in 2 years. A lot of times you pay for those pieces of equipment over 5 years. So 5 years of certainty to pay for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars of equipment, that's not unfair for private investors to want. And so as a small business owner, I understand that it is our responsibility to create certainty so that private companies will know that it's okay to risk, and risk they do. So those are the three committees that I serve on. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that you know about, because this is something we've talked about, and we will continue to talk about, is the amount of debt that we have in this country. And the reason I mention that to you is because there is no issue that we face as Americans that is more detrimental to freedom, more detrimental to our way of life, that is more detrimental to the American dream than when your country owes $16 trillion in debt and you continue to have an administration with their foot on the pedal of spending us more and more and more into debt. Now, I've got elected officials here tonight. I know we've got county commissioners. I saw Mayor Kelly earlier. We've got the city mayor. So we've got people that if you spent the way the federal government spent in your city and in your county, you wouldn't be there very long because the people would not accept that. So what I'm asking, I think, is something that makes common sense. You don't spend what you don't have. There's a principle that the American family has to abide by, that the states, most of the states, require a balanced budget. I believe that we need a balanced budget. Now, we can't get there overnight. I have some people that really, I have some people that are furious at me. They feel like we could balance the budget overnight. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's impossible. Not when you owe $16 trillion. But you can implement a common sense plan to satisfy the debt over a long period of time, to bend the deficit curve down. And that's what I want to see. And that's not what I'm seeing in Washington, D.C. I'm very aggravated that in the Senate, we've got a Senate that has not passed a budget in over 1,000 days. 1,000 days. Mayor, would that be acceptable to the citizens of Woodhaven?
No way. How can they get away with it?
Commissioner Dozier?
No.
Mike, would that be acceptable to the citizens of Bay County? That if you just said, as Senator Reid said, we didn't produce a budget in 2010, 2011, 2012, and you know what? We're not going to produce one in 2013 either. You'd think they'd be visiting Mike's Diner. I think not. The point is it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's simple math. It's math. When you have the largest economy in the world, and you have $16 trillion in debt, it is imperative that you do the very single thing that a first-year financial planner would tell their very first client. You've got to have a budget. That's not hard. No party deserves credit for that. That's just walking around sense. A budget. A budget. So one of the things that I'm going to mention tonight, and I want to show you, and let me say this, tonight I'm not going to be the only one talking, because I want you to be able to answer questions, ask questions, and if you want to, and let me say this, in a crowd this big, there's got to be people here that don't agree with me, and that's okay. But one of the things we will continue to do, we will not hide from you, ever. We will continue to tell you the truth. And I believe the American people want more than anything right now. They want the truth. Like people when you go to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, doctor, tell me the truth. Don't lie to me. Because I got some issues that I got to take care of. If the diagnosis is bad, I want to know. I got conversations I need to have. I got things I need to do. I got to get my house in order. Tell me the truth. And I'm finding around our district, whether Democrat, Republican, or Independent, people appreciate the truth. So, in a few minutes, after I get through my presentation, you don't agree with me, that's fine. I want you to be able to ask your question. I want you to be able to ease the frustration off in your life. If you're angry at me, say it. I'm a big boy. Bigger than I want to be. I can handle it. But we're going to talk. And then we're going to break up and we're going to go home and be with our families. So, one of the things I want to do, I want to show you what I need to plan. Oh, you can turn it on. This is a happy figure. What that means is by the end of 2012, we will have continued to grow our national debt to where you and your spouse, your children, everyone in this room will owe at least $50,000 as their prorated share. So if we said, okay, everybody's got to pay up so we can satisfy the debt. Everybody would have to show up with $50,000 from every individual in your house. The President's budget for 2013, and it's a budget request because it's not the President's budget, it's not the President's responsibility to produce a budget. That is the responsibility of Congress. And so therefore, and in the House, we have produced a budget, but the Senate has not, as I stated, the Senate has not heard our budget or voted on our budget in 4 years. So, the fourth consecutive $1 trillion deficit is what the President has put before Congress in his budget request. Now, the one thing I've learned, the uniqueness about the President's budget is that it's his responsibility to put forth a budget request, but it's also a glimpse into the President's vision of the future for 10 years. So when the President presents a budget, it's with 10-year projections to give you a glimpse that if he were a king, he would take the country. So you get a little snapshot into their soul. Doesn't matter whether it's Democrat or Republican, it tells you about their vision. Well, the President's vision says that by 2022, we will hit $47 trillion in total spending. It says that we will have almost $26 trillion in total debt by 2022. And this is the beautiful thing, that by 2022, we will have $5.7 trillion in interest payments alone, compared to $400 billion now, that we get no use of. It is interest. It's that aggravating little thing that we've all had to pay when we've made some really bad financial decisions with a credit card, only to find you got a principal and you've got interest payments. And that's what that looks like for America. The federal debt, and this is important, the federal debt will account for 106%, over 106% of GDP this year alone. So our debt now exceeds our total output of financial activity in this country in a year. We are moving in the wrong direction. Now, what I want to see is I want to see a plan put in place. A plan put in place that says, hey, we recognize the seriousness of this problem. And we refuse to tax our children with no representation. And that's exactly where we are. And so therefore, I understand that you can't solve this in one term, 2 terms. I get it. I liken it to having been diagnosed with cancer. Now, some of you in here may have lived through that, may have overcome that. You go to the doctor says you have cancer. You said, oh my gosh, well, what's going to happen? And the doctor says, well, the good news is that we can treat this cancer. Well, I want you to treat it, and let's begin immediately. Well, we have, chemotherapy can do it. Well, I want it all. Right now, give it to me all. Well, I can't do that. But we can put you on a plan that, say, has 40 treatments. And over a period of those 40 treatments, we will do 2 things. We will shrink the cancer, but allow your body to heal and get stronger and overcome and be healthy once again. Makes sense. You took all the chemotherapy at one time, sure, you'd kill the cancer. Kill the patient. That's like this. It's much as I'd like for that to go away in one term, you can't. As much as I'd like that to go away in 2 terms, you can't. 3 terms. And a lot of people believe that we have a 30-year mortgage. But what we do have to do is we have to say, we want a plan. How many of you would say, forget it, I'm not interested in chemotherapy? You get your purse, your car keys, you get up, you walk out of the doctor's office, and you go. You leave. What's going to happen to you? You're going to die.
We can live too.
Well, you could live, but arguably not as long as you would if you had treatment. Well, you are the exception rather than the rule. Okay? Because if you had 10 people that went in that were diagnosed with melanoma, and all 10 walked out saying, I refuse any treatment, right? Not all 10 would be living in a year. Now, there may be one like you who can beat that, but you won't beat it forever. So the point is you know and I know that the responsible thing to do is address the problem, implement a solution over a long period of time. That's what, and we're not getting that right now. And that aggravates me. Now, Admiral Mullen stated in 2010, the biggest threat we have to our national security is our debt. Many of you have heard that statement before. Now, Admiral Mullen, President Obama's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when he said that in July, you would think a man who had committed his entire life to the military, entire life to the protection and the security of this country, you would have thought, okay, well maybe he would have said Ahmadinejad and Iran's pursuit of nuclear proliferation. Or maybe he would have said North Korea and their continual pushing the envelope and their missile tests to launch long-term missiles that would carry a warhead. Maybe them. Or maybe even since we were in 2 wars in 2010, maybe he would even say Al-Qaeda. Maybe the Taliban. Maybe, but no, he didn't say any of that. He said the largest threat to our security is our debt. Our debt. Because that affects everything we do. That affects our budgets to education. That affects our budgets to transportation. That affects our budgets to HHS. That affects our budgets to Homeland Security. That affects to everything. Everything. That debt is driving us. But unfortunately, there are some that are just totally ignoring it. That's not responsible. So what we've got to do going forward is we've got to take that comment seriously going forward to make sure that we give our children more opportunity than we found. You know, we could be the first generation in American history that gives our children less opportunity. I've had people tell me at town hall meetings, that's not my responsibility to solve my children's problems. It's their responsibility. They can deal with it. Thank God I didn't have a dad like that. I don't know anybody who loves children and want to give them a harder life than they have to. Life's tough enough. Much less if you hand your children $20 trillion in debt. We can't do that. It's not responsible. It's affecting everything we're doing. And by the way, did I mention the 50 cents of every dollar we spend is borrowed? Because we don't have it. Now, my parents raised me in a Christian home. I believe in God's Word. A little scripture in there in Proverbs that I think bears repeating. The borrower will be slave to the lender. So if you believe in that statement, how does that apply to us as a country? America will be slave. To who? Pick a country. Pick a country. None of those countries that you would pick, none of them have been a shining city on a hill. None of those are countries that any of us would want to go visit and stay. countries we want to go visit, perhaps, but we want to come home. Because there is no place like America. I have a problem with the president when he claimed during his election that if he was elected to office, he would fundamentally transform America. Fundamentally? And when you fundamentally change something, that's like drilling down to the foundation. When you fundamentally change something, you change the DNA. When you fundamentally change something, you change it in such a way it will never be what it has been. You mess with it in such a way that you never agreed with it to begin with. I was not aware that America, not a perfect country, there is no perfect country. Like a perfect church. There's no perfect church if you're a member of it. I told me years ago, son, if you find a perfect church, don't join it, you'll run it. Because it's touched with human hands, you'll run it. There's no perfect country. But I will say this about America. On our worst day, we're the envy of the world. We're the most benevolent country that the world has ever known. There's not a socialistic country in the world that has given more to the needy. Please believe me, when they have an earthquake in Haiti or they have a typhoon in Japan, even a country like Iran who doesn't mean us anything but harm, and they have an earthquake, we go. Because we're benevolent people. We give to others. We treat others the way we want to be treated. Are we perfect? No. Have we made mistakes? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I disagree with the president that we need fundamental transformation. Fundamental. No, we don't. Well, let me say this. You know, the president, one of the irritations that I have with what has occurred in Washington, D.C., that's done a lot to that. I want to show you the state of America's economy. For 36 straight months, we've had above 8% unemployment. Almost 30% of the unemployed are jobless for over a year. 1.1 million Americans stopped looking for work. And there's another figure that doesn't even show up there in our jobless numbers, the people that go to college. The people that have left the workforce and re-entered school because they realize that they've looked for over a year, they can't find a job. The people that go to college, having left the workforce, those numbers do not show up on the jobless numbers either. So go home tonight and Google that. College entrance over the last few years. It's a big number and it's growing. 550,000, almost, 549, private sector jobs lost in 2009, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This particular recession has been extremely damaging to small business. Over 40% of those unemployed have come from small business. I can tell you where they've not come. They've not come from the federal government. Because the federal government is growing. I mean, it's unbelievable. The 5 wealthiest counties in America are the 5 counties that surround Washington, D.C. There is no recession there. Some of you maybe heard me say in the past, you can stand on the speaker's balcony on the backside of the Capitol and you can look down the mall, and just from there I can count 9, last time I was up there, I counted 9 cranes. And these aren't little cranes. These are big cranes. These are 15-story cranes, building really big buildings to house a lot of people. There is no recession there. And I want you to know it angers me. Because I come home at the end of the week, and what I see up there, I don't see here. And it doesn't matter which of my 16 counties I go to. I don't see it. It infuriates me. There is no sense of urgency there. It bothers me. Because there is opportunity cost. They can't have $1 there while you have $1 here. That dollar only has one place it can be at one time. And what they have, they took. We have become a regulation nation. Regulation, this year, almost 39 million hours of paperwork burdens on the American people. 46 billion in new regulatory costs for the year. In the last 3 years, more than 10,000 new rules. Now, I don't know what Congress was there, what year it was, I'm not sure, I need to look this up, that ceded its responsibility to the departments, giving them giving them rulemaking authority. But they all should have been removed that year. Because if you give, in my opinion, they created the fourth branch of government. The fourth branch of government. With no congressional oversight. 10,000 new rules? It's absurd. It's like kudzu. It just grows. Total number of major regulations, and major regulations are regulations that cost over $100 million. Under the previous administration, we had 28 major regulations. Under this administration, we've had 106. I mean, we continue to put pressure on people that we expect to create jobs. 85% of our economy is small business. It's not Fortune 500 companies. It's small business. It's mom and pops. And it breaks my heart what I see when I travel through our towns. It's unacceptable. And regulation has a lot to do with that. And let me say this. I was appointed by a Democratic governor to serve on a regulatory board. I've been appointed by a Republican governor to serve and oversee regulation. I get regulation. We need sensible, smart regulation that makes sense. But what we're seeing here is nuts. I understand sensible regulation. But this is out of control. I want to get to this. And the reason that I want to get to this, because this right here checks me. It angers me more than really anything I've seen in a long time. Pain at the pump. Gas prices. If you look at the national average, January of 2009 was around $1.80, I think, $1.85. National average today, you see Florida is right there at the national average, just under $4. And we have a Secretary of Energy who's been very vocal about saying that, in his opinion, our gas prices should be equal to that of European countries that have $8 and $9 gallons of gas. I just don't. I don't think that I don't think that's responsible when that doesn't have to be. I've disagreed with this administration. I disagree with this administration's position on the Keystone Pipeline. And clearly, if you care for the environment, and that is what the President claims he cares for, in his support of not permitting passing the operation to implement the Keystone Pipeline, it's certainly not responsible to build a gas line, a pipeline, over the Canadian Rockies to the Pacific Ocean, while Canada pumps that crude into the belly of a ship, and that ship travels across the ocean and delivers it to China. Do we want to debate the environmental record of China? So what is it? Is it the environment? What is it? No, I think it's an effort. I really believe it's an effort. I've been there 15 months now. I've interviewed the heads, the secretaries of many departments. Secretary Salazar of the Interior. I've had the opportunity to talk to Mrs. Lachenko of NOAA. Lisa Jackson of the EPA. I think it's an effort to cap the potential of America. And that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. And it aggravates me. Because it doesn't matter whether you're a trucking company, or you're a boat company, or you're just on a fixed budget, or you're a 12-year-old mowing grass this summer for spending money. That is going to affect everybody. And that's not acceptable. One of the things, and then I want to answer some questions. One of the things that I see, investment as a share of GDP. If you see, when people feel they can invest here, our unemployment numbers go down. When people see that they can't invest, our unemployment numbers go up. So if you look at the unemployment rate, those are inverted lines. It almost looks like they were traced from 1990 to past 2010. You look at the correlation between investment and unemployment. The more investors can invest, more jobs they can create, the fewer unemployment numbers we have. It doesn't seem that difficult. And today, it takes us 14 years to complete a DOT project in America. 14 years. You think prices increase over 14 years? Yeah, so the first time you go, I mean, the budget has completely been blown. And why? EPA loves DOT projects. Pass a DOT, your government feeding government. So anyway, that's one of the things I wanted to share with you. Now, I know I've gone long in my explanation. There's some slides up here I'm not going to get into. I promised you an opportunity to be able to answer questions and ask me perhaps on votes or something that we're going to have. Yes, sir?
Okay. My name is Frank Sabo. I live up in Deer Point Lake. I personally am very, very frustrated with Congress, the House in particular, for their lack of guts. The President and his administration has made Congress impotent. You can't get a significant piece of legislation out of both houses. You may pass them in the House, but they bog down in the Senate. It's been that way ever since you were elected and before. But you do have a tool that you haven't used, and it's probably because your leadership, Boehner and Cantor, are weak or just afraid of whatever the president can do. And that's the power of the purse. Why don't you unfund, just cut the funds of the EPA, the Department of Homeland Security, HHS? You have that power within your House. And it seems to me, if you can't pass legislation with the Senate, you got to do something. Otherwise, we're just going to keep on sliding down the train to the destruction of the country.
Frank, please believe me, you are no more frustrated than this member of Congress. I promise you, your frustration pales to mine. And I'm not in control. I think that my record has been very clear on my votes. I voted to only raise the debt ceiling with the implementation of cut, cap, and balance. That was the only, by the way, that was the only plan. When I asked S&P, that was the only plan that would have prevented a downgrade. Because they were all clear. S&P, Moody's, Fitch's, they were all very clear. They wanted a 10-year solution that cut the deficit, cut the debt by over $4 trillion. And the only plan that did that was cut, cap, and balance. And the others, I'm coming to you now. The other plans, I didn't support. I didn't support my own speaker's plan because it wasn't a solution. Because not only did we have to deal with the default issue, but we had to make sure we weren't downgraded. So I'm frustrated with you. I mean, not with you. I'm frustrated. Not with you. I'm frustrated with the situation because the one thing that drives me crazy about Washington, D.C. is there's no sense of urgency.
How about answering the specifics? Why can't you unfund?
Oh, the House could do anything, that they could do that.
Why don't?
No. When you say you,
No, I
gotta be careful here.
430 some odd.
435.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you are that, but
I'm one of 435.
Has that been raised to
Oh, sure.
the level of the leadership?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, what, you think I'm taking this quietly? If you have an opportunity to come into those meetings where we're in conference, you think it's nice in there? You think when the 242 of us get behind closed doors that we just sit on our hands? Have I ever, and you know me best, have I ever been guilty of keeping my opinion to myself? I've made it very clear. Very clear. And so therefore, and also, and that won't change. Okay? So, and much of my frustration is it's not just that, I'm a member of the I'm a member of the Republican Party. You know that. But much of my frustration is it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's some individuals in Washington, D.C. that need to go home.
I'll vote for Bailey.
Because they're part of the problem. So, I don't think that I've gotten in line like they like freshmen to do.
I hope not.
Sit down, hush, earn your stripes. I didn't leave this place, to go up there and sit down and shut up. That wasn't my dream. It's still not my dream. Okay? You sent me up there to represent you. And represent you I will. And I will continue to do so in a respectful way. I'm not going to disrespect, but there's a way we can disagree. And so we'll continue to do that. So I agree with you. It is the House. The budget starts at the House. We are the people's chamber. We're the ones closest to the people. So I think that we have, and it was fascinating. I heard Justice Scalia last year. He spoke to a small group of us. And he said, our founding fathers were very clear. It is you, the House, that is closest to the people. And it is you, the House, that must look out for the people more so than any chamber here, including the executive. And so therefore, I would agree with you. And there's some things but that's going to take courage. People come into my office, well, we want to give you more information. I don't need more information. Now, if you've got a crate somewhere of unused backbones, maybe you could ship some of that up here.
What is Bailey afraid
Well, there are people that have been there for a long time that are fearful of a government shutdown. And so the president obviously, with any party, the president has the largest bully pulpit in the world. Okay, the president sneezes, and all the major networks are going to televise. So, it is. Their fear is that obviously if there's a government shutdown, it clearly will be pinned on the Republicans. I think that I'm assuming that's what they fear. But look, there's some. Washington has got to. They've got to take that $16 trillion seriously. So, and here's the thing: we wouldn't be where we are, in my opinion. And I'm a conservative. Had the Republican Party did their thing it was supposed to do from 2000 to 2006. We wandered around in the desert because we didn't do the thing we were supposed to do. We're not the party of big government, massive government expansion. Well, you certainly couldn't tell that from 2000 to 2006. So my aggravation goes both ways. So if I have the fortune of being there, and we have the fortune of having a change of administration, a change of leadership in the Senate, man, I'm gonna fight if we do the right thing. This should have been done in 2000. Oh, right here. Awesome.
Anything on? Okay. Congressman, my name is David Sanchez. I'm a retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major, 28 years, and father of son KIA Sergeant Patrick Tanish in 2004. Most recently, I was at a business that you own and was observing a funeral for a young Iraqi and Afghan vet who served 3 terms, had been young man had a toxicology report done on him. The medications inside his body were 5 times the amount normally given to treat PTSD or traumatic brain injury. These doctors are like a pill mill, just like the governor's trying to crack down on. Something has got to be done about that. Also, I'm going to be referring to my notes, if you don't mind. Uh, 5 months ago, there was a vet center open for counseling behind the Haney Technical School in the Tyndall building. To this day, there has been no advertisement for that on billboards, on TVs, on anything. You know, if they would have known about this, maybe that young man could have gotten help there. My wife and I contacted the people who were involved with that. They sent us to Houston, Texas, who oversees this area. And they said the reason they hadn't advertised that is because they were all waiting to get all the VIPs in there at one time to have an open house. Let's add in the days, 5 months times 30. How many people commit suicide by that time? It's just unrealistic. The VA hospital reported last month 400 suicide calls. 400.
The hospital where?
The VA, Veterans.
You're talking about that's throughout their whole.
Throughout the whole nation. I'm asking you, through help through your office, is to please get someone in there with the military experience of a ground troop, one that's picked up body parts, one that's seen his buddies with their heads blown off, their arms blown off, or mutilated by our so-called Afghan brothers, and so they can help these people. Somebody that's flying high in the air can't tell you what's going on the ground. They need to be well versed in that area. I'm asking you to take the flag on this one, Congressman, and lead this Bay County into being one of the best with all the military branches that we've got around here for treating these young troops. Also, there's a lot of hiding being done by the military and our troops. It's going to be like the Agent Orange. You know, for 20 years they have hid Agent Orange, saying, oh, it doesn't affect anybody. Well, look how many people died of cancer and babies deformed and so forth. I get emotional, okay, I'm sorry. But there's a young lady who spent 21 years in the Navy, was on the ground, doing work on the ground in Afghanistan. They were burning biological and radioactive material, which she breathed in. She had a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years now, 3 children. They told her, until we get a group of people, we won't do any scientific stuff on it. So you're on your own. Same as Agent Orange. Just recently, I started getting letters from the Commandant of the Marine Corps. In 1978, when I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, I was drinking water that had contaminants in it that caused cancer. Now they're asking me, oh, did you drink the water? Did you shower in the water? Have you got cancer? Do you have stomach problems? Do you have headaches? It's 1978. Something has got to be done. We can build a $800,000 soccer field and hire 400,000 in the IRS to take care of Obamacare, but we can't hire 4,000 counselors to help these young men. So I'm asking for your help. In fact, I'm begging you.
And look, I hear your, first of all, let me say that thank you for your service, and thank you for service of your child. I don't, what our families in this country have been asked to do, and many of our young men and women have served 4, 5, and 6 terms, tours of duty overseas. It is a requirement of this country to not stop as long as these young men and women don't have the support that they need. I know that one of the most emotional days that I've had in my privilege and honor to represent you was the day that I went to Walter Reed. I'll never forget that day. The young men that I met and their families that I met that have given so much physically, have lost arms, legs, face, and you know what was so incredible about these young people? They were sad and weeping and grieving because they couldn't go back and join their units. They weren't weeping over an injury that was going to change them forever. They wanted to go back and serve. You can't come away from that without recognizing the magnificent young people that we have that answer the call. And I got to tell you, it's tough because you see what it does to their marriages. You see what it does to their children, their relationships that I haven't experienced, that pressure. And so my commitment is that I want this district, our district, to be the finest. But we will never be the finest congressional district unless we are the finest and are adamant that our young people, when they come back, that they must, and not just that have just come back from our most recent conflict, but many of you that have served in other conflicts, Vietnam, Korea. You've got to continue to get the services that you were promised when you went in. But let me say this. I started this by telling you the quote by Admiral Mullen. That debt is affecting the service that we give to our young people. It is the backdrop of everything we do.
We can't be doing all the food stamps.
Oh, I understand. No, I understand.
30,000 will be put on the streets now.
Yeah.
Because of Mr. Obama.
Well, we've got to do better. Now, let me say this: some of the things that I see us doing from the VA in North Florida is improving. I'm seeing some things that are good. I know in Tallahassee we've got the new VA hospital that is going to be breaking ground here soon. We have got. I know in talking with Jeff Miller, really the focus on some of our clinics for medication that we distribute to our veterans. That's going to be improving. We've got to do a better job. So many of our veterans, and you know, if you're veterans, you know having to go to Biloxi or I mean, what an inconvenience. And so we're starting to see a level. We are going to have I believe, a national cemetery in our district, and I'm thrilled about that. That's not something
I'll tell you one thing. If you're over here at the Navy base and they make you an appointment in Jacksonville, it usually takes about 30 to 90 days to get an appointment. A lot of these people do not have the money to pay for that ride up there.
Oh, I get it.
And of course they miss their appointment. My
Sure.
wife and I paid for 2 of them.
Sure.
And we've been on Jacksonville and now in Biloxi, and they're now saying that hopefully by June, if we can come up with 15 volunteers, they will provide a van.
Well, I think that, we certainly want to partner with you, and my promise to you is that with our very able staff, we are here to serve our constituents, and part of our constituents are the veterans that are returning. I know that with James Waterstrat here, who's got the microphone, and Craig Dethridge, who is our military liaison, he's standing in the back. We have helped a lot of veterans in the 15 months that we have been here. Do we need to do better? We all need to do better. Can we do better? I believe we can. Will we do better? I believe we will. Our desire is to make sure that we respond and give give you and other veterans like you the service they need. And so Jeff Miller, who is my neighbor, our neighbor to the west, many of you know that Jeff Miller is the chairman of the Veterans Committee in Congress. So, you know, I communicate with Jeff almost on a daily basis, and I'm always asking him regarding veteran services in my district. And I'll continue to use that relationship to follow your concern, because no one, you're talking about the veterans and their medications, and having a clinic that nobody knows anything about, is just unacceptable. Kind of like kissing a pretty girl in the dark. That's kind of worthless. I mean, she don't know who kissed her.
Mike, were you invited? Were you invited to do that stuff? Okay.
Hi, my name is Andy Georgiadis, and I work at the Sherman Avenue Post Office at the Processing and Distribution Facility. I know you're well aware that the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to create post and post roads. You already said that in your briefing. Currently, plans are to close the Sherman Avenue Post Office. No date has been specified exactly, but an impact statement has come out saying that 58 employees will be displaced and either have to move or quit, depending on what we're offered. We've been told this week we're going to be offered those jobs. I found out over the weekend that Title 39 of the Code of Federal Regulations in Section 121 specifies mail delivery standards. If that mail is moved from here to Pensacola as planned, they will no longer be able to meet those standards. I was just informed by James Waterstrat that the agency has the power to change that regulation, meaning the post office. So there is no accountability. They just do whatever they want, but yet the Constitution says the Congress creates post and post roads. What can be done to hold the post office to the regulations they create? I mean,